Sie hören Sport und Musik.
Das Spiel ist aus! Deutschland ist Weltmeister!
Mario Götze! Mario Götze!
Tonight, whether you call it football, or soccer, a German American and a German in America dare to call it foosball. German foosball from an American point of view. Let's add some buns to that hamburger and join them for the Schnitzel Boys Deutschland Hour.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. All right.
Yeah.
It is the Schnitzel Boys.
Yeah, here we are.
Schnitzel
It's
Boys
as
Hour
if
2.
We just saw each other. Yeah, this
We're
is
out
the
for halftime.
This is the Germany Hour. Ein Rudi Völler. Es gibt nur ein Rudi Völler. Ein Rudi Völler. Guantanamera, man. You know that song, no?
Guantanamera. Am I not singing
Ein
it?
Rudi Völler. Come on, let's try this again.
And
Es gibt nur ein Rudi Völler. Ein Rudi Völler. Es gibt nur ein Rudi Völler. All right. Well, you were clearly not. Well, you were in Brazil in 2002. We've discussed this. Oh, I didn't turn it off.
I was seeing that's the bad. I was worried I was coming today.
I was, anyway, I thought I had turned it off, but I didn't.
I need to snip that off.
Yeah.
But it's good to remind
Anyway,
ourselves.
or I could too. What was I going to say? Yeah, in 2002, that song was everywhere because he brought us back much like now. I was in New York City, but still, it didn't matter. We sang it at Zum Schneider on Avenue C. My people and I.
In summer 2002, I was in Peru and I was in Brazil.
Yeah.
We did not have the Rudi Völler song.
I met my wife in the fall of 2002. 2002 was a good year. It was a good year. And Rudi Völler was a big part of that. They were shades.
Started. Yeah.
There were shades of that last Tuesday when Rudi took over against and Germany, a team who looked lost and listless, all of a sudden had some oomph to it. Kai Havertz got an assist. Enough said. And
France got their one goal on a penalty.
Oh, I thought you were going to say France without Kylian Mbappe. And listen, there's lots of qualifiers to this. I'm not saying we're going to win the Euro, but there was a nice feeling about it. It seemed like the team had some zip to them. They won the game 2-1, and Rudi, I mean, I don't know. I love that guy. He just kind of takes all the credit, in my opinion.
So I discovered on my Samsung TV that I guess I've done this before. There's something called Samsung TV Plus, and it's just a bunch of channels that they have. If you buy a Samsung TV, you get their cable package. It's just bonkers channels. There's 24/7 Midsummer Mysteries in HD, which is big for my parents. There's Unsolved Mysteries 24/7 channel, and then there's FIFA Plus. Remember how FIFA Plus launched
FIFA Plus. Oh, right.
FIFA did launch a subscription service called FIFA Plus. That was a news article I read at some point. My Samsung TV has FIFA Plus. It's a 24/7 channel that just streams games and documentaries. And you know what they streamed in beautiful HD yesterday? And I watched the whole second half. The 2002 World Cup final between Brazil and Germany in Yokohama, Japan. I remember it was very dark, and it was still dark. I'm like, why was it so dark? But a young Rudi Völler, just 18, I believe, was the head coach of the German national team. No, I'm joking. Rudi Völler has always been 45 years old. He's always had gray hair. He's ageless, this man. But he was the head coach, and Germany played probably their best game of the whole tournament in that game, even though they couldn't score. And it was such a crazy game. But it was just cool to see Rudi Völler there. And now here we are, 20 years later, and he's doing exactly the same thing again. He's taken over a German dumpster fire, and he's setting it right. and it took him one game to do it. Germany was playing free, and what did Thomas Müller said? Emotionelles Befreiungsschlag, right? Is that what he said?
Ein emotionaler Befreiungsschlag, yes. An emotion. I think we've had this in Sprachgefühl before. A Befreiungsschlag is like a clearance. Like if you hit the ball out of your own penalty zone. That's
Have
called.
We had that? I don't remember it.
I have a memory of it. Maybe not.
All right, maybe we did.
But this was an emotional, basically a clearance. It was a reset, an emotional reset, an emotional clearance that got everybody a fresh start, and it was and it worked.
Yeah, and that was very telling, right? Essentially, I don't know if they were undercoached or overcoached or what, but when it was just them going out in the field and playing their stuff, they were playing like I haven't seen them play like that in a while. Like the Germany we've seen over the last few years has been heavily possessive. They're futzing around the midfield. When it comes to actually that bite, that goal instinct, that has been out the window. We haven't seen that in a while. They just don't know what to do in the attacking third. They've been clueless for a couple tournaments now. And it's weird. It's like, did they forget to score? They score goals for their clubs. And on Tuesday, the game, I didn't see any of that. I saw players passing to each other. Gnabry had a solid first half. They're just moving the ball well, kicking it, and they had that bite again. I mean, it could have been they scored 2 goals, and it didn't feel like they were pulling teeth. It felt like they could have scored maybe a third or a fourth. You know what I mean? They were back to playing football again. It was nice.
Yeah, and Kimmich on the bench. This was a big. I think. What do we think about that? Kimmich seems to have emerged as a
toxic figure,
as a potential. I mean, I think that's
toxic is a strong word.
It's a strong word, but as a potential problem figure.
Right. That comes from the documentary. I'm assuming you didn't watch the documentary this week.
Not yet. No, It's continues to be on my list. But
I had a conversation with Mr. What's his face Transfermarkt. What's his name again? Manu, the guy who runs
Manuel Witt.
Manuel Witt. We tweeted back and forth at each other about Joshua Kimmich. And Manuel Witt has been embedded in training camps and saw them live. And I mentioned that on the documentary, he seemed to be a toxic figure. Again, that's maybe a strong word, but he was very argumentative. And I asked him about that, and he's like, well, I saw him live. And he's like, I brought it up in my podcast before, but he definitely has Napoleon syndrome, is what he said.
Oh.
And Joshua Kimmich is a shorter dude. Remember last year after that Freiburg game, he got in trouble because he freaking yelled at the team and the fans. And, he has a little bit of a Napoleon complex, I think is what we're learning about Joshua Kimmich. And, this is what gives him...
But he's not all that short. Is he that short?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, he's the shortest guy in the field. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how tall he is, but he's not a tall guy. He's not necessarily a super short guy, but he's a little diminutive comparatively. And, the big thing with Bayern München over the weekend was he was taken off the 60th minute and gave some words to Tuchel on the sideline and told him where he could stuff it on international television. And sat down and was moping for the rest of the game. And, does Bayern München need that right now? He's the coach, In the documentary, he fought with Süle. He fought with Rudiger. He seems to be a dude with a mouth. I don't know. And just like you said, him and Goretzka are under a lot of scrutiny right now in the German press because they're kind of supposed to be like the German stars. But Germany's been failing, and they're getting a lot of heat for it. When Goretzka scored that goal for Bayern München, the two of them ran to each other and hugged each other.
Yeah.
And it was very
demonstratively, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And it definitely is related to this German camp, right? But without Kimmich, with Gundogan at captain, although he left 29 minutes in.
Yeah, he left injured, and then Pascal Gross came in for him, who also did well. I mean, obviously, he doesn't have the creativity of Gundogan, but yeah, he was good. Pascal Gross, he's a useful guy. Like, why has it taken so long? I didn't even know. I thought he was like Swiss or something.
No, I remember. I'm the guy who kept bringing him up. Remember?
I didn't even realize he was.
I scouted
eligible.
him. Remember? I take responsibility.
You take full credit, Stefan. Full credit.
I brought him up multiple times. Yeah, well, that's part of the criticism that the criticism under the Flick era, and I guess under the past eras too, is that only players from reputable clubs get called in. A lot of Bayern players, big club players, and a lot of small club players who were performing well were overlooked. The other big thing was that Germany was always missing like a number 6 style player. And what the stats guys will tell you, it's like Rani Khedira is German, number 6 at Union Berlin, crushing those stats, crushing those numbers, bringing Union Berlin up the league, bringing them the Champions League. He's never been called in either.
That is a weird
Pascal Gross was the leading scorer.
Have that like defensive midfield mentality, yeah.
And Pascal Gross apparently has been crushing it for 4 or 5 seasons now. I forgot what the stat was, but he was like one of the assist leaders in the Prem.
Well, he's been around. Straight. I mean, I guess he gets a little bit of because he's one of the longest tenured players on Brighton. He was on that team when they were not good.
Yeah, but
he gets a little bit of but no, he's been great, well deserving.
He was the assist leader for 3 seasons and never got called in. So there's a criticism where they should have spread a wider net, especially with our current crop of boys. We got some spots missing, right? Especially with Pascal Gross, we're missing a number 9. That's why it took him forever to bring in Füllkrug. I don't know. It's just the criticism was they should have cast a wider net when it come with call-ups, and I think it's justified. But anyway, Pascal Gross was here. He was a utility player. He was useful. He came on the field, and he was a key figure for us beating France. Okay, so it's a big game. Rudi Völler, Hannes Wolf. Bochum's Hannes Wolf, by the way. Hannes Wolf, born and raised in Bochum.
Sadio Wagner.
Yeah, Sandro Wagner.
I'm sorry.
Sadio Wagner.
That's kind of funny, but I didn't mean that as a joke. I just made a mistake. Anyway, keep talking. You're on a roll, Stefan.
Okay.
Don't let me slow you down.
So Rudi Völler was hired as the DFB chef. Now, the DFB has... Okay, where to start? The DFB has one major assignment. What's that assignment, Bjorn?
What do you mean? One major assignment?
Yeah. What are they working on right now?
The Euro next year.
Hiring a new Bundestrainer. Hiring a new national team coach, right? Wouldn't you say that's assignment number 1?
Yeah, unless they keep Rudi until the Euro, that'd be fine with that.
Okay, so you're into that. Rudi canceled that right away. He said he's not doing that. He has announced that France one and done. Tschüss.
Oh, really? Just this one game? He's going to be gone by October. Well, then it's going to be Nagelsmann, right? That's the next.
The DFB has promised to have a new coach in place before October 8th, and that's when the trip to the United States starts. You're going to watch the new coach live next month.
For the first time, his debut.
For his debut, which will be really exciting. A game that sold out, by the way, long sold out. People are trying to find tickets. They can't find them. So good on you for getting them early.
I got them early. I got 2.
Okay, so there's been a million names brought up, but the 4 runners are Julian Nagelsmann, Louis van Gaal.
What?
It's getting a lot of traction.
Come on.
And Stefan Kuntz. Essentially the big 3, I'd say. The
big 3 of world coaching.
Which of the... And then the other names were, like you said, Matthias Sammer was thrown in there. Felix Magath put his name in the ring. Oliver Glasner's on that list. I put all the faces on our thumbnail. I forgot who the other one I put. And there's been a bunch of others brought up.
Would...
Jurgen Klopp at the center of that, but Jurgen Klopp isn't going anywhere.
Klopp's
he's
not available.
And he's not available. Yeah.
Jurgen Klopp is not available in the next couple weeks.
Definitely.
Take over.
And that's also part of a bigger issue, which we'll talk about in a second. So let's just talk about coaches right now. You're the DFB chef. It's you. They call it Bjorn. What is it? Your decision is it. Who's the next coach?
I'm gonna sit down with Rudi again. I'm like, come on, man. It's already.
So there's
it's
more to that
already
Rudy story.
From run.
Should I get into that? I'll get into that. I was going to get into that later, but I'm getting into that now. There's a little more to that Rudy story because not only. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a second. So put Rudy on the show. You sit down with Rudy. Rudy says, "Nein, bitte. Ich bin pensioniert. Dankeschön. I'm retired. I did my one game and then I'm out. I'm out over the 2024, so my contract ends. Tschüss. Bye-bye."
So then, of all the people that you just mentioned,
anybody. My favorite coach, I didn't mention. He's not on the list.
David
and when
Morris.
asked, no, Christian Streich. And when they asked him about it, Christian Streich said, "They never called me, and I'm the head coach of Freiburg. I have nothing else on my mind. I have no other. This job is hard enough."
And they never called me.
Yeah, and they never called me. But he very much said, "This job is hard enough."
If they called me, then everything changes. But since they didn't, I love Freiburg.
Bjorn, Rudy said no. Hurry, we have by October 8th. Who else?
Nagelsmann. Come on.
Okay, why Nagelsmann? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just why between the three, between Stefan Kuntz, Louis van Gaal.
I have not. Nagelsmann. I mean, I think I like Stefan Kuntz in theory. I don't know. I haven't sort of kept up with him. I don't know where he's at. It seems
I can give you a little update. I can give you a little if you want.
Please.
He was fired yesterday from his head coaching position at the Turkish national team.
Oh, so he's now available.
He's available. However, Bjorn, was he fired because of results or was he fired because of his behavior as a German man?
You tell me.
The Turkish national team was playing great under him. They have 12 wins out of 20 after failing to qualify for the last tournament. They're second place.
What do you have to do for behavior in Turkey to get fired?
The players lost against Japan and tied Armenia. Now, Japan is like a German killer. They're just a great team, crushing everybody.
Japan, they're pretty good, yeah.
But they tied Armenia, and then Stefan Kuntz said the players were not exhibiting the quality we want. Essentially, he threw the players on the bus, and the Turkish FA fired him immediately for that. Players aren't open for criticism over there, apparently. And so he was fired on Monday. He is available. However, the reason I bring it up is because Stefan Kuntz was not fired because of results. They were actually playing well under him. And before his Turkish job, he was the U21 coach and the U17 coach, I think, who led all the young Germans to win their Euro title. He was like the super youth coach, and all the current players won titles under him and like him. He's like the Germany's Gareth Southgate. He was not a club coach, but he was coach. He was one of the national program coaches.
Okay.
Staff coach, and apparently he did well.
So yeah, I mean, I think he's a genuinely good guy. Like, I think if he has the chops, then I think I'm down with him as well. Nagelsmann, I think, is a good coach. I don't know. Bayern fired him because he dressed funny. I don't know. We still don't really know why. And it doesn't seem, like by temperament, you would say that maybe he's a little too sort of hyper for the national team job. I don't know.
He's 36 years old.
But, I mean, Stefan Kuntz is, well, I guess he's probably 10 years older, right?
He's like 61.
Oh, really? Oh, fuck.
Hold on, let me just double check.
No,
Stefan Kuntz is old school. He's from the old crew.
That makes sense. I guess I'm in denial about how old
Stefan Kuntz is 60. Yeah, he's
wow.
Old school.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, forget that. So they're not the same age at all.
No, they're polar opposites. They're polar opposites.
Yeah, I'm good with either. Louis van Gaal, I don't really rate all that highly. So I don't.
Bastian Schweinsteiger said he'd be the perfect coach. That's who he offered.
Bastian Schweinsteiger is who I love, like a family member, is saying a lot of stupid shit lately, though.
He's the ARD Fußball Kommentar. I watched him live a lot.
It's Pep Guardiola's fault that the national team was bad.
Yeah. He's the German Alexi Lalas.
Once you get paid, I didn't think he was, but like
he's not. I think
once you get paid to have opinions, it's like Anyway,
Stefan Kuntz played for VfL Bochum for a year.
I'm aware of that, of course.
He was the U21 team coach, the U23 team coach in Turkey. Yeah, so there you go. It sort of boils down to those three. I know. I would be. Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't know. With me, Julian Nagelsmann, I don't get it. Julian Nagelsmann has coached 3 teams in Germany. Hoffenheim, when he was doing great, he was a star. RB Leipzig and Bayern München. He coached 2 of Germany's biggest clubs. How many titles has he won as a manager? Quiz. How many titles has he won as a manager?
Well, he won with Bayern, right? Or did he like
the Bundesliga? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. It's the only title he's ever won. He won nothing with RB Leipzig. He won nothing with Hoffenheim, and he only won the one Bundesliga title with Bayern München that an essentially netless monkey could also win. Right? Is that a real achievement? I mean, he was one of 11. He was one of the 11 in a row. So I don't get the Nagelsmann love. I'm just like, he hasn't proven it. He's been given the keys to the car, and he's crashed both of his cars. Now they're about to give him a key.
What do you mean? Hoffenheim was supposed to win the Bundesliga, or the
no. RB Leipzig.
RB Leipzig was supposed to win the Bundesliga. He put that team on the map. Like
they were on the map before him. They were on the map before him. What I'm saying is, Julian Nagelsmann, shouldn't he have won more titles? Shouldn't he be a Champions League winner with Bayern München? Shouldn't he be a Bundesliga winner with RB Leipzig?
They fired him before he I don't know. Not everybody can win the. I mean, listen, I'm not going to stand up for. But I think, he's a young guy. It's not like he's been around for that long. I think his teams have been successful. I don't know. We don't know. I think he's always had a bit of a jackass vibe. Like it's not like I'm a huge fan of his, but I mean, you gave me those 3 names, and out of those, I think
because those are our options. It's weird. It's an interesting time.
Exactly. It's very. I mean, I said this last week. I feel very, I guess, humble about this because I thought Hansi Flick was going to kill it. I would have bet every cent I owned if given the opportunity on, like I said, I thought Hansi Flick was going to be a legend. Like I thought he was going to absolutely crush this job. And so who knows? Like, I don't know what I'm not. It's weird how that went so wrong. I don't really understand it fully. And I mean, it obviously did go wrong. Like there was no question there needed to be a change, but it's unclear how that went so terribly. And so I don't really have an answer as to who is going to be the next great, who know? I don't know.
So rumors are in this whodunit, the big thing with, so Stefan Kuntz was fired, so he's available. We know that as fact.
Right.
Julian Nagelsmann had this big $7 million a year contract for the next 4 years. He was still getting paid from Bayern München, and DFB would have to buy him out of that or something. There's some sort of financial thing with Julian Nagelsmann.
No, but Bayern has already said they're gonna accept whatever.
Rumor is that he already sort of canceled that contract or something. Some rumor that contract has been worked out, specifically so he could sign for the German national team.
Okay.
It's just a rumor. I don't know the specifics. Also, if you read on Kicker, they'll say Julian Nagelsmann is their Wunschkandidat and stuff. Seems like Julian Nagelsmann is the front. But to me, it boils down to those two, Kuntz or Nagelsmann. And I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. Like, if Nagelsmann is this Wunder coach and he does it right, then I'll be the first to say, well, excellent. I'm his biggest fan. But I don't know. And Kuntz, like you said, Kuntz is an unknown. You don't know. It's a big pressure job. He hasn't this kind of job before. So
I mean, he has a pedigree as a person in definitely in German soccer in a way that,
and a national team coach. He has
and a player, and in a way that Nagelsmann doesn't. Yeah. So perhaps for the national team that is important. I don't know. But yeah, like I said, I couldn't tell you. I'm glad. I guess if I were in the position to have to make that decision, I would probably have some more behind the scenes knowledge of what happened with Hansi Flick. So I could perhaps have a more kind of informed opinion. But as it stands now, I'm happy that I don't have to make the decision. And I would just try to talk Rudy into it, I guess.
Well, A watch doc. B, okay, Rudy, perfect. So That's that. Okay, so Rudy, that wasn't the only big thing. DFB made a big announcement on Friday at the press conference.
Oh, they have a new person.
They hired a new DFB chef specifically to be Rudy's boss. Rudy now answers to this guy.
So this is a new position that was created.
I believe so. They hired Andreas Rettich as the DFB chef, and his job is to supervise all of the programs. The women's team, special needs teams, the men's team, blah, blah, blah. Rudi Fuller's job is just the men's team. Kind of like here in U.S. Soccer, they had... So we have Bert Neuendorf.
Now they have Matt Crocker. So Andreas Rettich is the Matt Crocker of the DFB?
I think so. It's no, he's the JT Batson, right? Or am I wrong? Anyway, there's a. I guess he was hired to be the day-to-day general manager. So yeah, some sort of mix between Matt Crocker and JT Batson, maybe, or not. Anyway, who do you follow though? Who's the general manager of the national team? Is it Gucci Onyewu, I guess? Who even knows?
Oh yes, anymore? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rudi Fuller is there, and Rudi Fuller's contract ends in 2024. And Andreas Rettich says, we're hoping to keep him after that, so we'll see. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Andreas Rettich. Okay. So after the 2022 World Cup, the DFB created a task force featuring Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Oliver Mintzlaff, which is hilarious because he's also on an MLS task force as well. Oliver Mintzlaff is on the DFB Post-World Cup task force and the MLS, I think, Legacy League task.
If you say the word task force, Oliver Mintzlaff perks right up and is like, oh.
And in German media, you know what they call task force? Task force.
Task force. It's Sonderkomitee, task force.
They just like, we're taking English words. It also had Matthias Sammer was on that task force. I think Watzke was supervising it, and one or two other bigwigs of German clubs. They were appointed in that task force. That task force was very criticized. Matthias Sammer said this thing is pointless. And then when Andreas Rettich was hired, excuse me, immediately following that, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and was it Mintzlaff? Both quit in response to Andreas Rettich. They quit because they hate Andreas
They quit
Rettich.
The task force?
They hit the task force in response to Andreas Rettich. Andreas Rettich has a history of being very competitive with the traditional heads of German football.
He has a history of alienating his task force buddies.
Because Andreas Rettich is very much against the commercialization of football. He's an anti-money guy. And Andreas Rettich's last jobs were Victoria Köln for a year, and he was the general manager of St. Pauli for 5 years. They hired the St. Pauli general manager to be the manager at the DFB headquarters in Frankfurt. Now, why do you think they did that, Bjorn?
I'm hoping you will tell me.
I will. I have a theory, at least. So, Rudi Fuller and Andreas Rettich had issues in the past. Andreas Rettich has issues with all these people in the past. Before he was hired, they had to have clearing of the air meetings. Rudi Fuller and him had to sit down and sort of clear the air. Rudi Fuller went out publicly and be like, him and I have had a lot of disagreements in the past, but we work together now, and he's my boss, and I'm sure him and I will work well together. They had to promise that because Andreas Rettich apparently is a little bit of a shitster. And he represents the under-commercialization of football as opposed to traditional heads. Now, that's very interesting to me, that he was hired to be Rudi Fuller's boss. So when Rudi Fuller won the thing, Rudi Fuller's the hero, DFB immediately hires his enemy to be his boss. Interesting, right? Now, you think to yourself, why did that happen? Well, the DFB, just like the U.S. Soccer going to Atlanta, the DFB built a super-duper mega billion-dollar super complex in Frankfurt. They bought an old racetrack in the woods right by the city and built a mini city there. And it's just the DFB headquarters of fields and trainings, blah, 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 and offices. It is like the biggest football facility you've ever seen. It opened this past summer. Gianni Infantino was there for the opening. Hansi Flick was there. It was a whole thing. It's a huge thing.
That guy's also always available.
Who, Gianni Infantino?
Yep.
Wasn't he at an MLS game 2 weeks ago or something? He was somewhere.
He was at an NFL game. He was Jerry Jones invited him.
And they booed him.
Invited him to Dallas to lobby to have the World Cup final be in Dallas.
And they booed him on the screen.
They booed him on the screen. How do they even know who he is?
Americans, no.
Do they just...
FIFA's the bad guy around here.
What is it? Just soccer? Are they just...
No.
Just not like soccer, or was that specific?
Americans
to...
know
right.
FIFA is a bad thing.
I mean, who doesn't know? Everybody knows.
Right.
Hans Wolf has some funny things to say in the chat. Basti getting nasty.
He's got no riz.
He's got no riz. Basti's got no riz. He used to have some riz.
Yeah, he'd have the Pokal.
But that was not
Nagelsmann.
Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann did not win the Pokal.
They
have two, right? Don't they have two?
Only one.
Last
year under Marco Rosa, right?
Oh, right. But then they...
So why isn't Marco Rosa being touted as the next coach?
Task Force.
Wir haben eine große Task Force.
Ja, sehr gute Task Force.
Anyway, so DFB has this mega city that they built. The DFB is broke, Bjorn. Real broke. They operate on a deficit of $19.5 million a year.
And that's why they got a socialist to run the place?
Exactly. A, they could afford him. And B, they hired a guy who hates money because they have none. We need to find a guy who doesn't spend anything. We need to find a guy who's a specialist in the smallest budgets because those are the budgets we got. And then they asked Andreas Rettich about because, they can go hire Jurgen Klopp. They just have to pay for him. But they don't have the money.
That's not true.
If they go, if Saudi Arabia wants Jurgen Klopp to be the next coach, they'll hire him next week. I'll put $1 billion on it.
No way. Are you kidding?
No. Ask the Italian manager. What's his face? Marcello Lippi. Not Marcello Lippi. Roberto Mancini.
Jurgen Klopp is not for sale like that.
If he gets $1 billion a year offer, he's going to have to say yes. I'm sorry. He's not going to say no. He's going to say yes to that. I don't care who you are. Humans, money talks, BS walks. Anyway, Andreas Rettich was hired because they have no money, and he's a specialist at no money.
He specializes in
and they asked him,
poverty.
Is this next manager going to be an issue of money? And then he responded, no, I don't understand that, which is hilarious to respond that way. So I don't understand that. He's like, money will not be an issue for these coaches. They will want to coach the team. So he wasn't saying they have money. He was saying the integrity of the candidates will be people who don't care about money. Is also what he said. So I said, now I have theories. Maybe they spent all this money on this training center, and then COVID happened, and COVID, you know what I mean? Like, I'm very curious as to why the DFB is losing $20 million a year and running why wouldn't you assume that the DFB is a very wealthy, flush organization, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the Euro Cup will help them get back on track with that.
I guess they did not sell as many jerseys as expected the last couple of World Cups.
I mean, the team has not been popular. They have been failing. But it's just so interesting that the guy they hired is this guy who no one liked. Like, he's so competitive. And my theory is he's a specialist at working with broke organizations.
I was just joking about that. That's really what you think? They just hired him. We don't have any money. Let's get the guy who's used to that.
I think so. Right? I mean, why else did they hire this guy? Why else did they hire the guy
then
from
he
Victoria
comes along.
Code?
He comes, and so and I guess he proves you right in saying that, like, we don't want a coach who's just doing it for the money.
Exactly.
We want someone with integrity who cares about this. Okay.
So to me, I think that means Stefan Kuntz is about to be our next.
Well, he's
on a budget.
Currently unemployed.
Yeah. Like, you'll work for under $1 million a year, correct? He gets all the free jerseys you want. So that's been my DFB. So interesting goings on over at the DFB.
Oh yeah, all right.
Something
Well,
to keep an
thank you
eye
for
on.
catching me up on the behind the scenes. This is all very intriguing, and we'll have to see how it all shakes out. If Rettich proves himself to be the low budget maestro, do you think he? I have read some quotes from him. He doesn't have a glass chin. He can take one. He can take one on the chin. He said he's a hard-boiled guy. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I guess they could use. So this is Bierhoff's job. Yes, this is not a new position. This is just, but it's like,
from what I understand, Bierhoff, they're now splitting his job into two. Bierhoff used to do all of this, and then I guess one of the task force's assignment or something. I don't know.
Well,
the
Rudi
next
Völler
assignment is split his job in two.
And Rudi Völler was also now coaching the team in addition to booking the hotels.
Yeah, everyone has two jobs.
and calling the Ubers.
DFB is broke. Everyone has two jobs there now. But Andreas Lettich's job is all of the teams, and then Rudi Völler's job is just the senior team. In the old days, Oliver Bierhoff did both jobs, and people thought he was spread too thin, which is hilarious to me. Because with any of these high-level jobs, the question is, what do they do every day?
What do they do every day? They have people to. They have some women doing all the work, probably.
Yeah, they have
There's some behind the scenes. Yeah. There's some behind the scenes people who do everything.
Yeah,
and these guys are yeah.
Rudi Völler gets pitched sites by people actually doing work, and he's like, that one, and that's his job for the day. I don't know. I'm just very curious what the day-to-day looks like for guys like that. I want to see that Amazon documentary. Okay, that's the DFB.
The women of the DFB who are actually running the place.
That, or just like a day in the life of Rudi Völler. I don't know. What does he do throughout the day?
I would watch Rudi Völler reality show for sure. Absolutely.
Because da gibt nur ein Rudi
Völler. You got to listen to Guantanamera a couple times. I don't know what you.
Guantanamera.
No. I think you need. I don't think you quite. It's not you. It's not fully. It's not fully part of your being. That song in the way that it is for me, I guess.
I will practice get better. Before we move on, I will practice and get better. Before we move on, I have another retraction that's bothering me, and I have to.
Really, it comes up so rarely.
What?
Guantanamera. It's not. It may not be worth the effort. I'm just saying.
You sing it for me. Come on, you're Mr. Singy boy.
Well, which do you want me to? The original or the?
Yeah, no, original.
Guantanamera. I don't even know the word.
Guantanamera. That's what I was singing, right?
Guantanamera. Guantanamera.
Cool. All right, we'll practice. We're gonna choir, going to Schnitzel Boys choir coming summer 2024.
I don't know. Somehow. With Pellegrino's song, we were able to get further than this.
We'll practice. We'll figure it out. I think I'm sounding okay, but like I said, later when I hear the podcast, I'll probably be like, "Oh God, what am I doing?"
Guajira, Guantanamera. I'm just looking that up. I don't know what that.
Guantanamera. Okay.
Guajira, yeah.
Retraction time.
Compay Segundo wrote that song. I did not know that.
Who's Compay Segundo?
Compay Segundo of Buena Vista Social Club fame later in life. But I guess he wrote that song. I did not put that together. That's I'm glad I looked that up. Anyway.
Is Buena Vista Social Club da 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 da?
No. That's that's that surfing song that you sang.
I'm thinking of that band
Tequila.
in Miami.
Tequila.
What's
the
movie with Lou Diamond Phillips? He plays a band in Miami. Jose.
I don't know.
Maybe it's a different
guy.
It's not, I'm all over the place.
It's not Buena Vista Social Club. That's Cuba.
I know. Did they?
That's Miami, that's a documentary where, and I mean, they made a record. Ry Cooder, famous musician Ry Cooder, and his son went to Cuba and found all these old singer-songwriter musicians, and they made a record and made a movie, brought them to Carnegie Hall. feel-good story. And Compay Segundo is one of them, and he wrote that song. I didn't know. Anyway.
Great. Oh, I gotta watch it. There's a great documentary on Netflix about John Alpert, a New York journalist, who every 5 to 10 years would go to Cuba, and literally it goes from the 50s through like the 2020s, and it's just a great way to see Cuba over the last 70 years. It's very cool, and it's just like essentially it's like a snapshot of Cuba over the last 70 years. He visits like the same 5 families, see how they're doing, see what Cuba's like, and then you see it over 7 years. And he's also very good friends with Fidel Castro. So back in the day, he used to be close with Fidel Castro. That strained over the years. But that, I guess I don't want to spoil it, but it's a great documentary. I highly recommend it. I don't know what it's called. Okay. Just John Alpert, Cuba documentary. Anyway, so retraction. So we talked about hamburgers last week. I just want to offer, because I did a little more research. No one knows the roots of any of this.
Okay.
But essentially, there is a connection to Germany. Apparently, in the late 1800s, Hamburg specifically got themselves some cows. There are German cows. They're in Bavaria, but there are also some out in the outskirts of Hamburg. Also Denmark. Up in that area, there were some cows. It was kind of a new-ish thing, late 1800s. And they made frikadelles. You know what a frikadelle is, right?
Yeah, it's like a meatball.
It's like if a hamburger patty and a meatball had a baby.
We've been making jokes about frikadelle, about how they don't contain all that much meat. They put a lot of bread in them.
Right. Isn't that more the schnitzel? There's a schnitzel joke.
The schnitzel has the breading, which is obvious, but the frikadelle has sort of, you put some meat, it's ground, but then people put some old bread in there just for texture and for filler.
New bread. And
depending on where you get your frikadelle, it can be, the joke is that somebody buys a frikadelle and says, oh, can I have a roll? Can I have it on a roll? And the person says, oh, it's already in it.
Right.
The roll's already in it. And then this person says, oh, can I have, okay, fine. Can I have another roll?
For the roll.
No, it's also already in it.
So a frikadelle is like if a meatball and a hamburger had a baby. It's like thick and it's ground beef put together. A good frikadelle fried right tastes delicious.
And they do it curry style where I'm from.
Right.
They chop it up and put the same sauce on it. Then they put on a currywurst. Currywurst. This would be my fast food order in Germany. It would be currywurst and curry frikadelle with pommes mayo.
I might try a curry frikadelle when I'm there.
Oh, yeah. Highly recommend it.
But anyway, cut to America, 1800s. And there are people from those communities, from Central Europe and They also prepared steak that way. And that's where the term hamburger steak comes from. Essentially, it's them recreating a frikadelle, an America style.
Oh, because they did that in Hamburg.
Yeah, and it was chopped up ground beef. It probably wasn't exactly the same because the frikadelle tastes very different.
The frikadelle is quite different. Yeah, it has some spices. It's also usually it's
a different thing.
It's a little thicker generally than a burger. It's like if somebody hit a meatball on the head, but not too hard.
Right. It's like
that's how you get the shape of frikadelle.
And they're also very crispy on the outside and soft on the inside.
Yeah, they get deep fried. Yeah.
They get deep fried. So that's where the term hamburger steak comes from. They're just like, oh, steak hamburger style. This is late 1800s America. I'm talking New York, talking Chicago, talking those places. And then sandwich places did this novel, brilliant thing where they put buns on it. And they're like, this is a hamburger steak sandwich is where it comes from. And then that evolved into what became a modern-day hamburger. So it's loosely based on the old frikadelle recipe. But if you looked at a frikadelle now and a hamburger now, they'd be unrelated.
But you see this also in Germany that people put the frikadelle on a roll, on a German.
But they don't call it a hamburger. A hamburger.
No, they do not. It's called frikadelle auf dem Brötchen. Right.
Exactly, and a hamburger, like you said, from McDonald's, is a totally different food.
Completely different thing. Yeah,
American.
The two genealogies have diverged.
So in a way, when we say put buns on that hamburger, we're actually pretty accurate. That is the Americanization of a German thing. So
and we know that's what the public counts on us for accuracy.
Accuracy. I just want to offer
authenticity. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate. This is very good.
But if you Google it, everything is like it's unknown. However, here are some theories. Like no one has any specific dates.
Yeah.
It's just like they kind of know what happened.
I mean, that makes sense.
In the late 1800s, there must have been a sandwich boom or something. Everyone put shit on sandwiches, and then there you go.
We had some games also this weekend.
Yes, we had a great weekend.
The Friday game that people were kind of hemming and hawing about, like it having to happen so early after the international break. Bayern was unhappy with the scheduling. Turned out to be a total banger. Bayern against Leverkusen. Leverkusen coming in first. Bayern being the second place team, but at home. And 2-2 was a great game.
Yeah, really great game. It took about 20 minutes for Bayer Leverkusen to get into it. Bayern scored early, right? Did they score kind of right away?
Bayern scored early, and
then I was like, well, I was really depressed. I was just like, all right, season over. Fertig is this again. When teams come to Bayern, they crap a brick, and they psychologically just can't handle it. I don't know what's going on. But 20 minutes went by. Bayer Leverkusen got into the game. They started 1-for-1ing each other, and it was nice. And I was just like, okay, Bayer Leverkusen, you're maybe not as clinical. Like, Victor Boniface is amazing, but he showed he's no Harry Kane. Harry Kane's vastly more clinical.
He had some really good looks.
Right, ones that Harry Kane would have nailed, each and every single one of them. But Victor Boniface is young, and he still needs to develop that kind of clinical. But he had some great looks. And Bayer Leverkusen moved the ball really well. Like, they took them all to get in. But when they got into it, it was like these teams are it felt like a Champions League quarterfinal. It was like there's definitely some pressure. Took them a while to get into it, but when they got into it, some really beautiful football.
For a lot of it, Bayern seemed pretty dominant, and they needed that crazy free kick goal for the equalizer.
Right. Who was that again? That was
Grimaldo, Alejandro Grimaldo. He lobbed it over the wall.
And then, to be fair,
but that I thought that was a little. Right? I thought that was a little.
The big talk is
flattering at the time. The equalizer. Oh, the late penalty.
The late penalty is the big talk. We're talking about one thing about the game is the late penalty.
Well, okay. Well, you're skipping ahead though. A lot of stuff.
Sorry.
Well, anyway,
let's go back. What was the other stuff?
No, I thought in the second half, Bayern came out pretty dominant again, and but then Leverkusen. That's when I thought starting in like the 50th minute or so is when Leverkusen really impressed me with settling in and Boniface getting a bunch of good looks. And it seemed that Bayer Leverkusen deserved to win this, but then Bayern got the goal, the late goal, and as you were describing before, Goretzka scored, and Matisse Tell with the assist, who came off the bench again, really doing well. Great assist. And then you thought, here we go again. Bayern pulls it out, sort of lucky. But then the late penalty.
Soft, right?
I thought it was fine.
All right. It was earned. I was not unhappy with the 2-2 result.
I mean, it was soft in the sense that, it was a veteran move from Hoffmann.
Yeah.
To get in between the ball and Davies and so I think it was soft in that. I mean, frustrating, obviously, from Bayern's perspective to give that up, but I think the call was pretty legit.
Yeah, and there you go. 2-2, big game, did not disappoint. Both still leading the club, but Bayer Leverkusen has one extra little goal difference. So they are on tippy top of that.
I think, so far, Leverkusen and Leipzig.
Real deal.
Leipzig pretty comprehensively beat Augsburg, and so they're still up there. Stuttgart kind of won their local derby against I guess it's not really a derby, but like
big story there is
on the road.
The big story there is people talking Victor Boniface. Now they're talking Serhou Guirassy. He scored a hat trick, all 3 goals, and I think he's got like 9 goals already in the season. He's by far the leading scorer. So Serhou Guirassy, another great find over there in Stuttgart, crushing it up. And then as far as disappointing teams, let me go back up again. We got Dortmund and Freiburg was the big game.
Well, Dortmund has finally solved their offensive problems. They found their striker. What are you talking about?
You tell me, who's their phantom striker they found?
Mats Hummels scored 2 goals.
A brace.
Perhaps unexpected, but that's it.
One of the German podcasts I listened to, what do they call their episode? It was like 2 Mats Conversation or something like that. It was an English title.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, no, here Sportschau Bundesliga. The last episode's called 2 Mats Information.
TMI.
But no, the Freiburg player towards the end of that game was 2-2, and it was like a tight 2-2. Freiburg was leading that game early. Dortmund had to get an equalizer there. And then there was a red card by one of the Freiburg players, really silly. And in the last 15 minutes, Dortmund did a good job capitalizing. Marco Reus came off the bench, and they were able to get a couple goals. Like I said, one from Mutz, and then later from Marco Reus. And they won 4-2, but that scoreline is flattering for Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund is still not figuring it out. Mm-hmm. And Aiden Terzic is on the hot seat. He's definitely on the hot seat. So Dortmund, and they got Champions League this week. So we'll see what looks there. Wolfsburg beat Union Berlin 2-1 at home.
Yeah, they're also struggling a little bit.
Sugar talks about Hoffenheim. Pellegrino, Monserrat, and Hoffenheim are doing great so far this season. Another win for them, and they are 4th place right now, right? They're 5th place,
5th behind Stuttgart. Yeah,
only 1 point off the race. They're crushing it with a bang, featuring a very solid John Anthony Brooks, who's getting back into form. Interesting. We'll see if that leads to perhaps a new call-up for the U.S. team.
Spoiler alert, it will not.
Spoiler, it will not. And I shared a little Schnitzel Boys news. I shared my theory on Twitter, and it kind of blew up. I said a statement
blowing up
about, and I want your opinion on this, because a guy responded to me with a certain argument that, Bjorn, you would have more understanding than me.
Oh, let's hear it.
So I said that there's a theory that John Brooks was kicked off the U.S. team because I think after the Guatemala game or Honduras game or one of the last some game, at halftime he like yelled at Greg and said like, change your tactics. Like he was like freaking out. He was like, I don't buy your dumb tactics. Change it because we're losing and we have to do better. Essentially being a German. And I wrote, and then he was never called in after that because Greg is a softy boy and he was offended because he was offered the truth and blah, blah, blah. So I said, Americans can't handle the way Germans talk. Germans are brutally honest in a way that Americans don't understand. And Greg cut Brooks off the team because he had no understanding of his culture. That's what I said. Strong words. They wanted to get clear. And a lot of people agreed with me and liked it and retweeted it and blah, blah, blah. But one guy said, like, you don't understand. Germans aren't as honest. Like, New Yorkers and Bostonians are more honest, he kept saying. And I was like, no, New Yorkers are honest in a different way. And what I offered was this. I don't think this guy knows much about German culture. So I'm like, in New York, you're allowed to yell at anybody you want and be a piece of shit to whoever you want. But that's emotional. That's not necessary. That's not brutal. That's not an honesty. That's just them being emotional at each other. And they say what they want to say, but it's water off a duck's back. Because New Yorkers have a lot of mental space that they give each other versus because they don't have any physical space. Where a German's honesty is them just very blatantly offering you their raw opinion on stuff. It's not made to make you feel better. It's like John Brooks was pissed off with the tactics. So he said, your tactics suck. Change these. And he's just offering what his honesty was. An American would be like, I'm going to keep this to myself because I don't want to hurt Greg's feelings. Because we're American, and we'll talk about it differently. We'll be like, hey, Greg, I'm having trouble with so-and-so coming from behind. Do you have an answer to that? Americans have a way of talking that softens the blow. Germans don't talk like that. Germans have no interest in softening any blows. Right? Am I right or am I wrong?
I would say you're... well, I mean, it's always hard. You know, we weren't there. It's hard to really know. You know, because this kind of thing is always about nuance. And I mean, I would agree. I think there's a matter of factness about Germans,
right?
Yeah, where it's like it's not necessarily. I guess what you're describing is more of an outburst. I wouldn't say that's necessarily typical. It's just sort of very like kind of, well, this is just how it is.
Let's leave that story be. Let's just talk about Germans versus New Yorkers and Bostonians,
and I think
and the difference between their honesties.
I think yeah, the Germans will just be like, oh yeah, this is and I think there is yeah, I agree. I think New Yorkers are much more emotional and get very worked up. So it's a different kind of style of the. I mean, like people say that about New York versus LA, right? How in New York people are kind but not always nice, and in LA people are nice but not always kind. And
it's true.
And I think it's sort of along those lines, like the yeah, there's a gruffness about New Yorker sometimes that's not the same.
Yeah, but like in New York, they're strangers. You know what I mean? They're being emotional. You're like, get the fuck off my train, or
right.
But it's to a stranger. Germans do that to people they know. Like if you're at work, you'll sit across from the work table and be like, "You're 20 pounds fatter than last Monday. What's going on?" Or so, you know what I mean? And they're not trying to offend you. They're just offering.
It's just matter of fact. Yeah.
Yeah. Where Americans would never say something like that.
Like in German, like in like when you go on a bus in New York with a German person and the bus driver says, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Or like you say, that will always get a reaction from a German person of like, "What? That's not, they don't care. Why are they asking you that? They don't care whether how you're doing or not. This is just polite, like gratuitous politeness. That's not. That doesn't mean anything. That's something that Germans are not. They don't do that. They don't put on airs. They don't pretend.
Right.
They're not like particularly polite. It's just matter of fact. Yeah.
And that cuts back to Timmy Chandler, Fabian Johnson, Julian Green, Jermaine Jones, and John Brooks all having problems with the U.S. soccer camp scene. They've all had problems. And my theory is, as a child of both cultures, it's like I know. It's like I'm just like, I know what that problem is. I see that. Now I'm surprised. I mean, Greg isn't a nobody. Greg spent time in Germany. He knows this. But the reason I bring it up is because I tweeted that as a theory, and then some guy was just like, no, not New Yorkers or Bostonians. I'm just like, you don't know what you're talking about. I understand that there is something to New Yorkers, and there are Americans that are honest, but no American anywhere, including in New York or Boston, are as honest as, like you said, a matter-of-fact German person. They're just like offering you information, where Americans always filter everything and based on how they know you, what the environment is, and how it serves them.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, that's my thing. Anyway, so I wanted your 2 cents about that because you're more steeped into both New York and German culture than I am. But yeah, so we have Heidenheim beat Werder Bremen on a really fun game over the weekend. And the Darmstadt-Gladbach game was amazing.
Oh, man.
Such a great game, featuring a goal from one Jordan Pifak. He scored a goal, but then he missed a sitter at the end, which I felt.
Wait, Pifak? Where did he?
He scored a goal. He plays for Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Oh, he does? I didn't know that.
Well, Yanks Broad update. Jordan Pifak is loaned to Gladbach from Union Berlin.
Oh.
He's spending the season with Gladbach with Joe Scally. Joe Scally was subbed off at halftime because they had to change their tactics. Didn't look good for Scally. But Pifak stayed on, scored a goal early, and then missed the winning sitter at the end. But Jordan Pifak on the field, scoring a goal. Good for Pifak. But amazing 3-3 game. Darmstadt up 3-0. Gladbach coming up in the last 25 minutes to tie it up. Showing a little grit. Good for Gladbach. Okay. And Bochum had a great game against Frankfurt. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I mostly listened to it. I was driving back from Vermont, so I got a little. Although I didn't have good reception, I don't know. It seemed like we did pretty well, but then didn't win the game.
It was an open game for the last 20, 30 minutes. It was great, and they're going at each other, and a good fought 1-1 draw for Bochum.
Yeah, we haven't won a. Good news is we're in 13th place. We'll take that. Bad news is we have not won a game yet.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm still believing it. I think there's a high press going on with those guys, and we'll see what happens moving forward. Okay, last but not least is we got Champions League this week. 4 German teams are playing, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
We got Leipzig in the Schweiz against Young Boys.
Young Boys.
Dortmund
at PSG. Union Berlin at Real Madrid. This is the blockbuster matchup right there.
That's the one I want to see. Yeah, I'm going to try to watch all of them, obviously, but that's the one I want to see. And Bayern hosting dumpster fire Man United. We'll see how that turns out. But some really exciting games midweek. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that does Deutsches Fußball. I mean, we want to talk about Julian Draxler. Turns out he was still playing, but he's off to Saudi Arabia.
Julian Draxler is off to Saudi Arabia. I mean, there's nothing much to say about it except, like, what happened to him? He was like one of the big talents of his generation, one of the leaders of the national team, and then just kind of got benched in Paris, and that was and never heard from again. And now he's going to Saudi Arabia.
What's the guy? He's the representative of the Lost. What's that American player who's the star of the Lost Generation? He was in England for a bit, and he was a Texas
Tommy McNamara.
Nah, not Tommy McNamara. His name has escaped me at the moment. I should know his name. Anyway, there was this guy, American legend, who was like part of that Lost Generation. I think he was fired from Sunderland for flipping off the crowd or something, went back to Texas. But, his name was on the tip of my tongue. Julian Draxler is the German version of that guy.
Clint Mathis? No.
Yeah, no, but that kind of compares a little bit. Clint Mathis was, definitely a spark plug that definitely lost all his potential and kind of flamed out. But Julian Draxler was on the books at PSG till like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he could have fooled me. I had no idea he was still on the books at PSG. And he's like the kind of the player we're missing. We need a great Julian Draxler. What happened to that guy? Yeah. He's off making money in Saudi Arabia. More power to him. Julian, maybe you'll make your way to MLS at some point. I don't know. We can see close up what you're doing. Who knows? But that is the exciting week in German soccer. See you all next week. We got Champions League, and then we got Bundesliga. And maybe by next week, the new manager will be appointed. We will see. Take us out, Bjorn.
What?
Do you have any? Where are you? Are you a million miles away? That was it. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Cheers. Who do you think should be the next Bundestrainer? Write it in the chat.
Rudi Völler, man.
Also, the big Cone meetup in DC this week. We got a bunch of our boys going there. Have fun. Bring pictures. Take pictures. Bring them to the show. Tell us what it's all about. We look forward to hearing how the Cone meetup in Washington, D.C. goes this upcoming week. And, do us a favor and tell your friends down there about your Schnitzel Boy pals. Have them join every week. Tschüss. Bis nächste Woche.
Tschüss.